The island of Arkmouth sat 20 miles off the main coast, a jagged fist of black rock jutting from the Atlantic like the fist of a drowned god. No trees grew there, no birds nested on its cliffs. The locals on the mainland had a saying about Arkmouth: the sea doesn't want it, but it won't let it go. My name is Edmund Hale. I was 53 years old when the Coast Guard assigned me to Arkmouth Lighthouse. It was supposed to be a quiet posting, a reward, they said, for 30 years of service. 6 months alone, maintaining the light, logging weather reports, watching the ships pass in the dark. They didn't tell me about the sounds. The first night, I heard it beneath the waves, a low, rhythmic pulse, like the heartbeat of something impossibly large. I wrote it off as pressure in the pipes, the settling of old stone, the tricks a lonely mind plays on itself. But each night the sound grew clearer, more deliberate, more patient. By the third week, I began keeping a journal, not because the Coast Guard required it, but because I needed proof that what I was experiencing was real, that I wasn't losing my mind in the gray Atlantic silence. October 4th, I lowered a hydrophone into the water off the eastern rocks. What I recorded defied any explanation I could construct. The pulse I had been hearing was not random. It was structured, repeating patterns of 3, then 7, then 13, prime numbers. I played the recording back 17 times before I allowed myself to consider what it might mean. Something down there was counting.
I radioed the mainland. They sent a marine biologist named Dr. Carver. She arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, stepping off the supply boat with expensive equipment and a skeptical smile. By Thursday evening, she had stopped smiling entirely. "Edmund," she said, standing at the edge of the eastern rocks, staring down into water that was somehow too still. "I need you to look at these sonar readings." The image on her screen showed the seafloor 70 feet below us, and rising from it, structures, geometric, angular, arranged in patterns that no natural force could produce. Columns of stone that had no business existing, connected by archways carved with symbols that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. "How old?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. "The sediment dating suggests..." She paused, swallowed. "Older than the pyramids, older than recorded civilization, possibly older than human presence on this continent." That night, I dreamed for the first time since arriving at Arkmouth. In the dream, I stood at the bottom of the ocean, dry and breathing, surrounded by those impossible columns. The water pressed around me like a living wall, and in the center of the structure, in the deepest shadow between two massive archways, something moved. Not walked, not swam. It moved the way a thought moves, shifting from one position to another without crossing the space between. It had no face I could describe, no form my waking mind could hold on to. But I knew, with the certainty you only feel in dreams, that it was aware of me, that it had always been aware of me, that the lighthouse, the light itself, had been calling to it for over 100 years, not warning ships away from the rocks. Summoning. I woke at 3 in the morning to find Dr. Carver gone. Her coat was still there, her boots, only her diving gear was missing. I found her logbook open on the table. The last entry was written in a hand I barely recognized as hers. It said, "It's been waiting. The light is the signal. We are the offering. Do not turn off the light." I turned off the light. The silence that followed was not silence. It was the absence of a sound I had stopped noticing. That deep, rhythmic pulse from beneath the water. Without the light, The pulse faded, then stopped entirely. For 3 hours, I sat in total darkness, listening to the waves, waiting. Nothing happened. At dawn, I tried to radio the mainland. Static. I tried the emergency beacon. Nothing. The signals were simply being absorbed, swallowed. I climbed down to the eastern rocks. The sonar was still running. The structures below were gone. The seafloor was bare, featureless, as though the columns and archways had never existed. But something else had changed. The sonar was showing movement. A mass, enormous, rising from depths that exceeded the equipment range, rising slowly, deliberately, toward the surface, toward me. I ran. I remember the lighthouse door slamming behind me. I remember the sound that began when the mass reached shallow water. Not the rhythmic pulse I had grown accustomed to, but something that vibrated inside my skull, behind my eyes. And then, silence. True silence. The kind that has weight. When I finally opened the door, the sun was high and the ocean was calm and empty. No evidence of Dr. Carver. No evidence of the structures. No evidence of anything. Except one thing. At the base of the lighthouse, carved into the black stone, fresh cuts pale against the dark rock, were symbols. The same symbols from the sonar image, shifting when you looked at them directly. I photographed them. I packed my equipment. When the supply boat came, I left Arkmouth Lighthouse and never returned. I moved inland, far from any coast, far from any lighthouse. I sleep with every light in the house burning. Some nights, when the house settles in the dark, I still hear it, counting. 3, 7, 13.